Hello there. My name is Bill Inman. This is the third day of the symposium that we're having on data lakes. In the first 2 days, we discussed what is a data lake. We discussed the lineage of data in the data lake environment. Yesterday, we discussed text and we discussed visualization. Today, we have with us two people that I think you're going to enjoy hearing. The first is Ranjit Srivastava. Ranjit is an author of the book on data lakes, and I hope you've read the book or you're going to read the book if you're interested in data lakes. The second person we have is Patty Haynes. Patty Haynes is a very experienced practitioner. Patty has spoken at conferences and has done writing of papers in conferences. Today, Ranjit is going to be talking about the subject of housekeeping in the data lake environment, and Patty's going to be talking about compliance and governance in the data lake environment. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Ranjit Srivastava.
Thank you, Will. Thank you very much. Hello, friends. Hope you all are safe and doing great. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. I'm humbled and glad to be here with you. I would like to thank Bill, Databricks, and you all to give me this opportunity to present today. So I'm Ranjit Srivastava, Chief Architect of Coforge. As Bill told, I'm co-author of the book Building the Data Lakehouse. As Bill introduced and told that we have seen in last 2 days of symposium, few of our friends and colleagues talked to you, including Bill, Robert, Dave, and Dr. Valerie. As Bill told, I will be speaking to you today along with Patty Haynes. So Patty will be talking to you today afternoon. So in favor of time, as few topics are already covered in detail by Bill, Robert, and Dave in past, we will try to contain our discussion within our topic for today. So we will be talking about the topic that is going to be discussed very first time in the industry. It has never been talked so far, okay? Except into the recent book that me and Bill co-authored, that is Building the Data Lakehouse. So we will be talking about various things, including 3 of the core topics, that is around housekeeping of data lakehouse. We will also talk about data futureproofing. We will talk about FDM and so on and so forth. So just a second. So let us start data lakehouse housekeeping. So where there is house, there is housekeeping. So this is a very catchy phrase that we use for. So actually, housekeeping in terms of an organization means record keeping within any facilitates or which facilitates productive work in an organization. We need to set up the housekeeping process in place for data lakehouse to be a data lakehouse forever, or else it becomes a data lake. So I mean, there is the actual difference. So the data lakehouse housekeeping will actually help keep the data lakehouse in order year over year, decade over decade, in fact. So it is the process of housekeeping that actually can help you establish a data lakehouse from a data lake. So as Bill mentioned earlier in his symposium, very first day, there are 3 types of data structure. That is structured data, semi-structured data, and unstructured data. Semi-structured like log, sensor data, and all. In unstructured data like textual data and a lot of other form of unstructured data, which is not in a form that is directly that can be directly analyzed. So data warehouse was actually designed primarily for structured data, and data lake was designed for keeping semi-structured and unstructured as well, apart from other data. So in fact, if you look at the data lakehouse has best of both world of data lake as well as data warehouse. So these are the few topics which we will discuss today. So all these 6 topics, one by one, we are going to check and just visit and revisit, and we will have a few riddle during the session for little more fun. So as I will be talking about few new paradigm, I understand that there can be mixed reaction into the industry. I understand it, I respect it, that everyone has their own opinion. Those who like can adopt it, those who doesn't can even accept it tomorrow, because we all know that few people even believe in using only traditional proven methodologies, or I mean, those people can they generally feel safe and cozy, I think. So as soon as those who like to adopt it, well and good, and those who doesn't will adopt it tomorrow for sure. So, but trust me, early adopters of any, new paradigm or innovative paradigms are always the front runner. So I'm open for any sort of query or questions you have, either at the end of the session or during the QA session we have. So I welcome all kind of questions related around it. So our discussion will primarily be around following these 6 topics. So data integration and interoperability. So the moment it comes to data integration and interoperability, it covers acquisition, extraction, transformation, movement, replication, and data federation even is part of it. Then we will get into master reference for data lakehouse. So here we will be talking about the references to manage shared data to reduce redundancy into the system and ensure better data quality through standardized definition and data value. Privacy, confidentiality, and data protection. Here we will talk about data privacy, data confidentiality, and data protection. And then we will move to data future-proofing in data lakehouse. So it can be defined as a process of anticipating the future and developing methods around it, so that the future data can be captured and arranged in a way which is going to add a lot of value to the enterprise. And then we will talk about different phases of future proofing, which we articulated it in a way which will help bring it up into any enterprise setup. Then we'll talk about the routine maintenance of a data lakehouse, how to do the data lakehouse routine maintenance, how data lakehouse maintenance cycle actually completes data lakehouse housekeeping and make sure that our data lakehouse keep signing and keep helping the enterprise by offering insight from the core enterprise data. So there is one small riddle here, which will just to bring some agility, some interesting fact around it. So you will be seeing it so on your screen now. So this riddle is all about why a data lakehouse process is required. So whether it is, you can see the quiz. So whether a data lakehouse process is required for construction of lakehouse or for record keeping, which facilitate productive work in an organization for keeping the data lakehouse in order year over year, okay, for comfortable stay in the lakehouse. So what I think, you can give your answer here. So this is the answer, which you can see 75% of people answered the right, choosing the right option for keeping the data lakehouse in order year over year. So let us move next. Let us talk about the data integration and interoperability. So the moment it comes to data integration and interoperability, I mean, it completes by talking about all the sections of data integration and interoperability that is covered through acquisition, extraction, transformation, movement of data, replication of data, and federation of data within the enterprise. So here you can see the aspects of integration and data interoperability in data lakehouse are primarily through achieving all this while we deal with the raw data in a data lakehouse. So let us talk about them one by one. What is acquisition? What is extraction? What is transformation, so on and so forth. So to start with, the moment we talk about data acquisition. So what is data acquisition? And what all components of data integration is actually it contains and it includes. So practically, if you look at data acquisition, includes conversion of physical condition of data into digital form, and obviously into a structured form for further storage analysis. So typically, if you look at IoT data, that also includes signals from sensors, voice data, text, textual ETL output. I think Bill and Dave both talked in past about this textual ETL and its output in Symposium in last 2 days. Logs or any alien source systems, and or many other different kind of source system. So a data lake and data lakehouse are supposed to have all such data stored, and they are designed for the purpose. Okay, so the data extraction, if you look at, is the first step in any data ingestion process, right? So ingestion process can be either ETL or ELT. It can be extract, transform, and load, or extract, load, and transform. And you can easily notice here that extract is the first step in both the process, whether extract, transform, or load, or extract, load, and transform. Right? So this is the process of extracting data from database or software as a service platform. So it includes any file format from formats like Parquet, CSV, RDBMS, flat file, or whatnot. And it is it can be for any architecture platform like data lake or data lakehouse. So primarily, all file format and all architecture platform are supported. Let us talk about the transformation. So what exactly data transformation is? So it is a process, right? Process of mapping and conversion of data from one format to another. So whenever you expect data from heterogeneous sources, data transformation is obvious due to many regions of different data format from across sources. So this another format is nothing but the uniform format decided for that data lakehouse in this case, right? So from one format to another format. So one format, if the format is different than the another format, then actually this guide takes place, this data transformation takes place. So it is component of almost all data integration wherever you do, and wherever you feel the gap between the source to target. So transformation can be for bidirectional, and how it is bidirectional, because bidirectional purpose can be inbound and or you can say outbound data from the data lake, right? In this case, so transformation even require internally as well while it comes to data lakehouse formats. So what happens? So the moment it is inbound, that means you are consuming data from heterogeneous source systems. The moment it comes to outbound, that means your data lying into your lakehouse is consumed by other enterprise applications. Okay. It might be internal applications or external applications. It depends. So transformation is needed whenever and wherever the data need to be mapped due to various regions of data format. And that format differences source to destination file or storage format differences plays a vital role. Again, the moment it comes to transformation, three things are very important before deciding whether the data need any transformation before it is stored into the target file format. The first is the source data format understanding, like we need to understand the source data format. Second is the desired data format expected into the destination. What is the desired data format you are expecting into the final destination? And third and final is the transformation logic and the transformation rule which you are going to use to convert the source to the target. But provided when this third step is required, when first and second has a difference, right? First and second in the sense the source and the target. So this is the classic reason behind the transformation. So let us talk about the federation, data federation. So what is data federation? So a federated data system, if you look at, is a type of meta database management, you can say, system which transparently maps multiple autonomous database system into a single federated database. You might be knowing few tools and techniques as well in the market. Teradata has that query grid, IBM has pure data system, and then fluid query, SAP HANA with a smart data and all. So all these were different aspects of data integration and data interpretability in data lakehouse. So we have already talked about acquisition, we talked about extraction, transformation, we talked about federation. So let us go through another riddle for fun, which will ask you which of the first step in any data ingestion process like ETL and ELT. What comes first? Whether acquisition comes, extraction comes, transformation comes, or movement comes. So both ETL and ELT are going to help you in data ingestion, right? So it is going to be very much part of your integration and interpretability. So with this quiz, we are going to finish our the first portion out of the 6, and then we'll move to the master reference for the data lakehouse, where we will we'll be talking about the importance of master data reference and how the master data reference are created. So let us see who answered what. Wonderful. So 55% participants are telling that it is extraction, and that is correct. Wonderful. So let us see, move to next. Let us talk about the master reference for data lakehouse. So master references are references to manage shared data, to reduce redundancy and ensure better data quality throughout the standardized definition of the different data values within your enterprise. So the moment it comes to master data reference, you can see in this slide, and let us try to, let me help you understand what exactly it is and why it is in fact needed. So master reference are actually references to manage shared data, to reduce redundancy and ensure better data quality and so on and so forth, as I explained. So, but still you can ask, right, that why master reference is in data lakehouse? And a data lakehouse is not a data lake, right? So in a data lake, you might not need a master reference, right? And that is generic understanding. But as we have learned, a data lakehouse is the best of both data warehouse and data lake. And so managed master reference becomes obvious, right? So a master reference is the reference of master data to manage shared data, to reduce redundancy and ensuring the data quality. So earmarking such shared data will actually help the enterprise maintain a single version of the truth across the data lakehouse. A data lakehouse is not the dumping yard, right? Like, I mean, it is unlike data lake, which can be a dumping yard. So at one end, it will store data from heterogeneous sources, and at another end, it will be the source of truth for various external, but I mean maybe dependent system within your enterprise. So various enterprise system might actually extract required data periodically or regularly from the data lakehouse, right? In that case, this master reference is going to be Boon. So the data lakehouse can be a source of truth, as I told, for various external system. Once master reference earmarking is over within your data lakehouse, the layer need to be actually structured and brought into use. Then only it makes sense. Otherwise, I mean, so next comes the question of precedence, right? The moment you talk about MDM and master references and master data management, the core problem and core question that comes from audience is the precedence of references for master data. So this is a very natural question though, and it has solution already, I mean, that exists in the market, and it is used almost everywhere to create any master information repository. So product owner or functional experts are the guys within your enterprise who decides the precedence of data to actually override or update the data into reference data or the master data store. So what happens, for example, let us discuss a use case. For example, an enterprise has many applications that capture the customer address. It might be captured in a CRM, maybe in a sales application, or in a finance or billing application, right? So all applications might have captured the same customer's address in different way, maybe differently, right? The CRM might have captured its customer address that might be showing a place, a different city into your country, right? And a sales application might have some older address of the same guy, same customer. That customer might be staying into some another, city, into maybe another country. But today, this customer is staying in a city, for example, in Bangalore, India, and the billing has the latest updated address. So once an enterprise has a master reference, all application will rely upon the single version of truth and for the first creation of the single version of the truth. So the precedence rule need to be rewritten if precedence changes. That says which address in this case will go and sit in the master reference. And here's the example. It should be the billing application for that address. They should rely upon that application because that is the most current address so far within that enterprise. So this is all about master references. So now we will be looking into the next topic of our discussion today. That is going to be data lakehouse privacy, confidentiality, and data protection. So, by the way, do you know that data privacy, confidentiality, and protection are actually related, but not the same as data security? So, though I noticed many a time it is often diluted, and though we are mature enough to understand that it should not be ideally. I hope that you all will agree to my point of view here. So they may look similar, but they're not same. So let us look into it. So primarily we are talking about three topics here: the privacy, the moment it comes to privacy, not other than data privacy, and data confidentiality, and the data protection. Let us try to understand it one by one. So what is data privacy? By the way, it is interchangeably called information privacy as well in the industry. Various people interchangeably use, means data privacy sometimes are called information privacy. And I think it should not surprise you. It often refers to a specific kind of privacy linked to personal information that is provided to private actors in variety of different contexts. So here definition of personal information is very subjective and maybe defined differently in different contexts for different domains. For example, personal information on social media might be your personal credentials, including name, sex, your age, your address, your contact number, your ethnicity, so on and so forth. So personal information in healthcare might be few vital EMRs, your electronic medical record attributes, diagnosis, health condition, various healthcare vitals, your treatment, right? So these are this will fall under the data privacy category. So how will you define data confidentiality? So primarily, if you look at data confidentiality, deals with protecting against the disclosure of information by ensuring that the data is limited to those authorized or by representing the data in such a way that that its actual or original value remains accessible only to those who are entitled or kind of possesses some critical information, right? For example, uh, you try to you go for a decryption or a decoding key for encrypted or coded data. So these kind of critical informations are also part of it. For example, a patient got treated into a hospital nearby, right? And he was diagnosed with diagnosed for AIDS, right? Undergone a long treatment into that hospital, but this patient might not be interested in sharing his or her medical condition or the diagnosis of AIDS to anyone except that patient's doctor who is actually treating that person, right? So hence in this case the accountability of the hospital falls, I mean, I should say the accountability falls over the hospital to make sure and maintain the confidentiality of the data of that specific patient. If that patient doesn't want to reveal all this, data that is he think or she think that it is confidential to that person. So if you look at the application, certainly used to capture and store that patient data, but that application should be capable of handling the confidentiality, right? Then only that is that can be taken care. And that data confidentiality rules applies to even the data lake or even data lakehouse, where the data is actually ultimately residing within that enterprise or hospital. So that is why it is little more important, whether it is data lake or data lakehouse, that need to be taken care of. So what is the third item, the data protection? So data protection, actually, if you look at it, is nothing but a process of safeguarding that important data, that information from getting it corrupted or getting compromised or lost. So the whole concept we are going to talk today is going to actually help you understand how we can make sure that data is protected. The important information here again is very subjective. So definition of important information can be different for different maybe entity or organization, right? So those important data might be, for example, your unpublished financial information or data of a customer, partner, or your vendor within your company or organization. The patent, formulas, or various new techniques, the IPs. Right? So those things are actually that require protection within your enterprise if you're storing it or safeguarding it. So we'll also talk about it in next few topics, where we will be talking about few new paradigms. So how we will be taking care of protections. So a few commonly known data, privacy, confidentiality, and protection policies you might be aware of in healthcare domain, that is HIPAA, and that education rights and privacy has FERPA, FERPA. There is COPA for child online privacy. There is GLBA for, there are many. GDPR for European Union's General Data Protection Regulations, so on and so forth. So all these are around the same concept of data privacy, confidentiality, and data protection. So let us go through a new riddle that is all about checking whether a statement is, you agree with a statement or not, that a data lakehouse without data lakehouse housekeeping is only a data lake. Do you agree? Great. So this is the answer. The most people answered, 82.4% people answered that it is yes. Let me take you to the next topic, that is data future proofing. So the long awaited topic is here now. So that is data future proofing in data lakehouse. So how can we define data future proofing? How will you define it? It can be defined as a process of anticipating the future and developing methods of capturing and arranging the data. So data future proofing is actually quite new paradigm, and is the process of anticipating the future within your enterprise and developing methodologies around it for capturing and arranging the data. Right? That data should be arranged in a way that can minimize the gap due to various missing data or relevant data for purpose of relevance, data-driven researches, correlation, trend, patterns, data-supported evidences, past incidents, and experiences. Right. So that is going to add a lot of value in a way of elimination of unnecessary data. So these are few stats that can help you understand. So that data future proofing is to eliminate unnecessary data. It has capability to eliminate almost 2/3 of your unnecessary data within your enterprise. It will reduce storage expenses, and it will reduce almost by 1/10. That means 90% reduction. So it has capability to reduce storage expenses by 90%. It can even enable you to bring down the data vulnerability to 0, means up to 100%. So above parameters, if you look at the moment you follow the methodology what we just discussed to process the and to introduce the whole reduction and then storage capability reduction of the storage requirement and reduction of the vulnerability, automatically you are going to take care of the reduced data complexity. See, if you look at, you should not forget the importance of data lakehouse for an enterprise. It is meant for a long term. It is not for few months or few years, right? So technology will keep evolving. Employees, consultant, and vendors may come and go, right, within an enterprise. But accumulated data relevance will always be there for an enterprise. I'm sure you must agree with the statement. Let's see, technology will keep evolving. Employees, consultants, or whoever is the vendor, OEM, they may come and go. But the data you are accumulating within your enterprise and that data relevance will always be there for the enterprise. Next gen business is all about data, right? So all cognitive activity, including cognitive science and AI, ML, whatever you talk about, all revolve around the data you accumulate, whether it is healthcare related or insurance, aviation, environment, weather, socio-economic, behavioral data, geographical data, political data, geopolitical data. space data or research data of any field of a study, I mean, the more past data or proven historical data can help, I mean, in better future finding, right? Because as Bill rightly says, data is the new gold. Let us look at few facts you might like to know. I mean, you may notice here, do you know that still the analyzable data percentage is in single digit within an enterprise? Single digit, once I say, I'm trying to be a little conservative, it is less than 10%. Okay. And in fact, it is far less than 10%. So this slide shows that the information that has the potential for analysis would jump to 37%. So please don't misinterpret it. It clearly says that the information that has the potential, okay, and no ready to be analyzed or not getting analyzed, I mean, as of now, it has potential to be analyzed. Okay, so that is 37% has the potential to analyze. It is not getting analyzed. So don't get fooled by this statement. So bring it to a level so that it can be analyzed is altogether different game. So recently it was surveyed that organization collect only 56% of data that is potentially available through their operations. Out of that 56%, only 57% of data was used by organization. 43% were largely unleveraged. Again, don't get misguided with this so-called percentage. It is 57% of 50, I mean 57% of 56%. That may be about 31, 32%, isn't it? So this statement might look differently, but the masses underneath is quite different. So as per my old, one report I was going through, that is very old report published by Guardian. So just 3% of all data is currently targeted. Currently actually tagged and ready for manipulation, and only 1/6 of that 3%, that means 0.5%, is used for analysis. Will you believe this is 2012, means almost 9-10-year-old statement. Still, it is single digit. Still, even after almost 9-10 years, it is in single digit and below 10%, as I told. Let us look at another volumetrics. So this volumetrics shows that the amount of data in the world is in this context. I mean, look at the figure. It is all about amount of data in the world. It shows almost 40 to 50% growth year over year. 2019 it was 41 zettabyte, and then 59, almost 60, then almost 75. It expected to be 175 by 2025. So by the way, a zettabyte is a measure of the capacity which is equal to 1000 to the power 7. So it is humongous data. So it is as good as somewhere around 21 zeros. Good. Now, there are a few more facts which you would like to know. So my point, what I want to put here is, what is the gain level of data required for such stats? Did they need the information like how much byte were generated by Ranjit or Sam or Tom? Okay, or in 2015, how much hours were actually spent by Ranjit on Netflix and so on and so forth? No, right? So my point is, for these are the information, these are the stats which are using your history data, which are using your data which you have kept into your future-proofed storage by following that data future-proofing methodology, right? So similarly, there are a lot of information, right? So do you think you need all set of data for such business stats in future? In future? few year or few decade down the line, what data or information are required for such business data to be actually extracted? Did they need the information like, in 2012, whether Ranjit or anyone else had a smart speaker? Here it is saying that 1 in 4 American adult owns a smart speaker. But think about it. They don't need to know whether Ranjit had it or not, whether XYG had it or not, or in 2015 whether Ranjit used to be online or not. Does it matter? I'm talking about 10 year down the line, 20 year down the line, 50 year down the line. No, they might need such info for their operations of the business, but not for such future decision making. Yes, certainly those current data or that level of grain level of data might be required for their operational purpose and all, but not for future purposes. And that is why the concept of data future proofing is going to help, and that is where it comes from. So the data future proofing has the capacity to bring down your enterprise storage requirement by many fold, as I told earlier. It may bring it down by up to 90% of what you have required today. Even if your business needs the lowest possible grain level of data for whatever reason, I'm not going to quote them. In that case too, it has potential to bring down your storage requirement by up to 75%. I'm talking about extreme cases, the lowest grain level. Okay, go by that word. So simply if you look into simple calculation, your 100 TB requirement will shrink to 10 or 25 TB. And not only that, it will help reduce the data vulnerability, right, within and due to your enterprise or the business. So it also helps reduce the business risk. If you reduce the data vulnerability, certainly your business risk will be reduced, right? It reduces your enterprise expenses on unnecessary over expenses on data privacy, data protection. This is what I was telling that we will be discussing further. So this is the point. So it reduces your enterprise expenses on unnecessary over expenses of data privacy and data protection over the time. It reduces your enterprise expenses on various government regulation, maintenance, implementation, and maintenance on all set of data like GDPR, so on and so forth, which we have just seen and discussed. So that will be actually required for your enterprise data for future, for various such valuable insight that you can actually extract out of your data in future, even maybe after 20 or 50 years. For example, let us assume one case, medical data, pharmaceutical data. This data can never be obsolete, right? Or for the sake of reference, any research data are not supposed to be obsolete, even after 50 or even 100 years. In fact, that is going to add a lot of value. Tell me, who is making money if you end up by maintaining your unnecessary history data into even cheapest cloud storage? Who? Your loving CSP, that is cloud service providers, right? So all these hyperscalers will never, so even if your storage is cheap or cheapest in a way, think about its cumulative and recurring billing that your enterprise is actually going to born for such humongous, unnecessary or unwanted data. It keeps swelling, right? It swells and will keep swelling in future. So it will never be reduced. It creates your dependency on CSP, and they want you to glue together so that you become your they're dependent. Almost all CSP into the market today try to make you global. So they extend all sort of free native tools for various so-called free offering that keep you stick to them. Because once you have used their native tools, whatever they say, you can't migrate from their platform. If you try to migrate, that is going to cost bomb. It is much more than you had actually calculated few years back. It is fishy and it is tricky business. I'm not against them, but I'm taking their neither I'm taking their name as such here in this forum, but I understand it is quite different game. I deal with them day in and day out. So you can reduce such burden by following this simple methodology of data future proofing. It costs peanut. In fact, it costs nothing. If you apply data future proofing, the methodology itself is not going to cost anything, because it is paradigm, it is principle, it is an architecture. It is not a proprietary product, right? So next quiz time. Fill in the blanks. The data lake house has best of both worlds. Which best of both worlds? The data lake and the dash. It is right. It is data warehouse. 95.8, almost 96% people are agreeing and they are in line with it. Okay. Just look at this picture. It is showing two different views of same subject, but from two different viewpoints, right? How these data viewpoints are determined? So data viewpoints actually are determined based on the business concerns and generally, created in coordination with the core stakeholders. Right? So, what business you are into, what is you are trying to, what is your, from which viewpoint you are looking at. So for one person, it looks like 9, for other it is 6. So it is actually determined based on the business concerns and generally created in coordination with the core stakeholders. As I mentioned earlier as well, so another very common scenario where the data future proofing can help in enterprise from data vulnerability can be, let us consider an enterprise who capture both personal and sensitive data. Personal data like name, address, medical details, bank details, and sensitive data like the racial information, political opinion. Your political opinion is also sensitive data, right? The religion, trade union, association information, health, their sex life, their clinical activities, so on and so forth. So the enterprise, let us assume, has been doing its business for last maybe more than 2 decades or so, and all of a sudden the company is acquired by another business house from a different domain or sector altogether. It is as good as just imagine a marketplace, a company like any supply chain company or a retail marketplace acquired some IT company. Okay, what will happen? All of a sudden that equation happened. For example, retail company acquired it. So what will happen? Or a manufacturing company acquired an IT company. What will be the future of those personal and sensitive data captured by that first enterprise? If the data future proofing was not done, obviously there are chances of accidental exposure, because they might not be knowing the importance of your data, what you are capturing, what you have kept, where did you keep. You never know who will acquire, who will take over. And what will happen to those tons of personal and sensitive data kept by the previous organization? You never know. If the new owning organization had the support to handle such data, right? So the same thing could have been handled in hassle-free way once you have already implemented data future proofing into your organization. So that keeps all such merger and acquisition hassles free from any such data vulnerability to the old or very old or historical personal or sensitive data or information within your enterprise. So this is the way data future proofing can help reduce the data vulnerability risk from and for any of your enterprise. Now let us talk about different phases to achieve it. Okay, phases of data future proofing. How will we, or how can we achieve it? So let us discuss how can it be done for your enterprise. Data around it, that covers all sort of your data within enterprise, irrespective of different org, or not only enterprise, maybe the whole corporation. See, many org put together becomes enterprise. Many enterprises put together maybe a complete corporation. So we have divided data future proofing process in 5 different phases. You can see here: identification phase, elimination phase, future proofing phase, organization, and storage phase. So as you can see in this diagram, so what we talked in use case, okay, we should clarify the purpose, identify the entity and attributes, to be captured, and eliminate sensitive data, or the data that might not be relevant for the purpose in future. So if you look at, we can start with identification of data, then elimination methodology we need to use, then we try to do the future proofing, and then we organize the data, and then we store. So let us look into it one by one. So the moment it comes to identification, what we think of? So generally, if you look at, or mostly I should say, such future proof data, future proof data purposes actually include analytics and or research, right? Primarily, in general, but it is not limited to analytics and research only. You need to identify only those future proof entities and attributes of the subject. So that the subject can be your business domain, like whether it is healthcare, insurance, aviation, manufacturing, education, you name it. Okay. In healthcare domain, for example, the EMR might have hundreds of attributes. EMR in the sense, I mean to say that electronic medical record. But you might need very few of them, right? All data you might not need for the future. So the grain level of an EMR is up to every encounter of a patient, isn't it? But for the future, you might need the maybe extraction level from the maybe disease, from number of patients, maybe diagnosed with that disease, maybe primary diagnosis, second. There are a lot of concepts in healthcare, primary, secondary, and all. Maybe their gender. You might not be interested what happened to Ranjit, but you might be interested that how many males are impacted with such disease, how many females are impacted, age group, how much, what is the impact of COVID on kids, what is the impact on COVID on different gender people, male or female, what is the impact of COVID on senior citizens, cure status, maybe whether they got cured or not. So let us look into this. So what do you see here? You need to primarily identify. We are talking about identification, very first phase, right? You need to identify the future proof data and attributes for your business here. Think through and decide judiciously that what information might be useful in future. How to achieve it? It is very simple, in fact. Keep the purpose of future data need of your enterprise in mind. For example, I'm trying to explain it in a different way. The reason behind is, as it is very first paradigm, you need to little think through and go through it maybe repetitively. So, for example, the purpose can be analytics or research or whatever. It's up to you, up to your business, up to your enterprise. Now we need to identify all those entities and attributes relevant. Those are relevant and meaningful for your business needs and benefit that that you can actually foresee in future, maybe 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, 50 years down the line, 100 years down the line. You simply need to identify only those future proof entities and attributes of your business domain, and nothing else. So your enterprise business domain can be anything from healthcare to insurance. As I told, it can be anything. or retail. You just think of and you can implement it in all possible domains. For example, the EMR might have hundreds of attributes, as I told, in healthcare domain, but you might need very few of them. So still, for the future, you might need the abstraction level from disease, number of patients, how many patients were diagnosed with that disease, their gender, the age group, cure status, and ultimate treatment. So in general, the main purpose of future proofing the data is to help execute analytics and research work. So here you can see this age. Okay, these age are actually these are green color attributes are future proof attributes, which you can see. The age, encounter date, means during what period this actually, for example, you want to diagnose a disease that during what were the period when this disease came, and how many males were impacted, how many females were impacted, what was their age group, okay, what symptoms they had, what medication was working, what was the final status, whether they were dying or they got discharged successfully or whatnot, right? So all those sort of information you don't need. You might not be interested in looking at what was the email ID of that guy, what was his health, patient ID, what was the name of the patient. It doesn't matter, right? 10 year, 20 year, 50 year down the line. Think about the situation. Once you have this future-proof data, how much impact? For example, this COVID itself. If we know that similar kind of flus, it is not like it might not have happened in the world in past. It must have happened, but there is no data as such which can be analyzed up to that scale. We are every day learning from COVID data. Some new variant comes, everyone start panicking and jumping here and there. And if such kind of data we could have kept, think about it. How many millions of lives might have saved? So let me quote one very important point here. The moment it comes to data future proofing, so data future proofing, in fact, is quite domain agnostic, tool agnostic, and technology agnostic. It has nothing to do with what domain you are into, which tool or technology you or enterprise uses. So it is boundaryless in a way. Okay. So take an example of EMR data again from healthcare domain. We had shown the future proof data set that those were actually identified for future proofing, right? There are other types of data as well, like personal data, sensitive data, controversial data. I will show you. How can you earmark and identify them? How can you? There are multiple ways identifying, and as I told, elimination. Now, by identifying those personal, future, and sensitive data, now follow that elimination method. So we need to eliminate sensitive, future sensitive, and controversial data while preparing your future-proof data set. So in general, a data or data set contains its sensitivity or controversy nature only if it is linked or related to individual's personal information, right? Else what will happen? Else an isolated or abandoned or unrelated sensitive or controversial attribute has no significance. Right? So till the time it is connected to some individual, that individual can be me, you, or an organization or an institution. Individual can be anything here. So look at this slide. So this elimination phase and the process of elimination is all about making the data you don't need, right? Marking the data you don't need. So you simply need to mark it, which you don't need in future. Eliminate all those entities and attributes that have no significance for your future analysis and research. Eliminate sensitive, future sensitive, future proof, and controversial data very clearly. Follow a clear elimination method to be more specific. So it helps narrow down data easily and very quickly, very fast. So you'll notice it. You take any example, even a small set of your data, and you try it. It is so easy. Eliminate sensitive, future sensitive, and controversial data, right? To prepare your future-proof data sets. For example, what you see on this slide is EMR data, in fact, the same data which we have been looking at for last couple of slides. Again, from healthcare domain. So we had shown the future-proof data actually here. And now there are other types of data as well, which you can see: personal data, sensitive data, controversial data. See the personal data. I wish I could have zoomed it, but you can see personal data are what? The PID, the patient ID, the name, date of birth, the address of the patient, the phone number of the patient, SSO, maybe social security number, and so on and so forth. What is sensitive data, by the way? The medical condition of the patient, right? Whether it is critical or admitted or dead or whatever. The race of the individual, which race they belong to, or the status, whether that patient is still alive or discharged. So these are sensitive data. So we simply need to take care of them. So you can understand that attributes are sensitive only if they are supported and served with personal data. Right? For example, in this case, a patient medical condition and diagnosis can be sensitive if supported and actually linked to personal information, like social security number. Similarly, the patient race can only come under the controversy category of data if it is linked with a specific patient. Right? If you say that patient died, who died, what is the social security number, what is the name, and what is the date of birth, does it make sense? No, right? So any data is sensitive till the time it is related to your personal data. That is the message I am trying to say. So once you understand these small big gaps now, I mean, it will be easy for you to actually articulate and bring up to a table and make it a reality into your enterprise. Here on this, let us talk about the future proofing. So in most of the business scenario, except few, not guarantee for all, detailed level or lowest grain level of data is not required, okay, for future use. Generally, in general, in most of the case, I mean, if I say percentage, let me not commit the percentage here. Okay, let us go ahead. So lowest cardinality of data is generally required in transactional environment in general, right? You might have noticed. So we should judiciously decide the data extraction level or the grain level of data while future proofing your data or data sets. So more the aggregation, less is the chance of personal and sensitive data vulnerability. How I think you might be knowing it. More the aggregation. The moment you aggregate, let me take you back to that slide. Here one. So if you aggregate, that tell me from age group 1 to 20, what is the stat? And then 21 to 40, what is the stat? And 41 to 60, what is the stat? 60 plus, what is the stats? Will you be able to identify who was where, who is Jack, and what was the data of Ramesh till the time you don't? I'm talking about extracted and segregated data, not again drill down, drill through. Don't think about it. So once you do it, you will neither be knowing their name, nor PID, nor the date of birth. So what it is doing? You aggregated it, and in turn, the chance of that personal and sensitive data vulnerability has reduced. It is almost zero. You can't reach back, right? So this is what I'm trying to convey here. There are a few ways: by anonymizing, by aggregating. So these things are going to help you. So the last point you can see, the in principle, the isolated or abandoned or unrelatable, sensitive or controversial attribute can be part of future-proof data because it has no significance till it is, I mean, linked back to individual person, place, or thing. So you have killed its sensitivity. You have disconnected it. There is no connection. So in principle, the moment you isolated or abandoned or unrelatable, sensitive or controversial attributes, you are done. You are set to go. So it depends. What is your enterprise needs? So that is where I told that it reduces your footprint on storage expenses from anywhere from 10% to 20%, 25% only will be required. That means it is reducing to somewhere around 90%. Okay, and this vulnerability and all will be almost zero. I mean, your data will be, you will be rest assured that you are not going to do any risky or tricky business while you are handling your data, your customers' data, your clients' data. So the moment it comes to anonymization, there are a lot of anonymization methodology. I mean, it is all well known, but still to list with, I mean, to discuss it here, let me talk about few anonymization methodologies here. So there are many ways to implement anonymization. Few of them can be like data masking, pseudonymization, generalization, data swapping, perturbation, and synthetic data creation. So the moment it comes to masking, you can see my mail ID here can be masked like this. No one can make out if it is marked like TXRX2ranjit@gmail.com. If someone try to mask, I mean, no one can make out what is this email ID. Every next letter is crossed. Right? Pseudonymization. So what happens? Uh, Pseudonymization method is Sam can be swapped with any Ram, Tom, Dick, Harry, whatever you want. You can make it generic. For example, a person is staying in flat number 105. What will you do with flat number? If you remove the flat number, no one can reach up to that person. Right? So you are generalizing it. Only you will be knowing that that person's area name, maybe city name. If you don't know need area name, you can even remove area name. It will be more generalized. In city, Ranjit stay in Bangalore. Go and search for Ranjit. No one will get it, right? And similarly, there are other methods like swapping of data with DOJ and so on and so forth, data perturbation, rounding off, yeah. So, I mean, here what you do, perturbation may, I mean, you can think of rounding numbering method, adding random noise like base of 5 used for rounding age or house. For example, my age is, hypothetically assume it is 47, I'm rounding to 5, make it 50, gone, right? Or put some noise, add 10 to all, add 5 to all, it depends. So synthetic data creation, so construct artificial data sets using mathematical models based on various patterns contained in the original data sets, so on and so forth. So these are a few ways. Let us talk about this future proof attribute as we have identified in all these green colors. So if you look at, you certainly need, I'm talking about again same example, same EMR data sets, medical records. As I told, you might not be interested, I mean, 20 year, 50 year down the line, you might not be interested in knowing the patient's name, their date of birth, but you might be interested in knowing which age group he or she is. When that treatment happened, the encounter date, that will give you the date that when this coronavirus, when was he admitted, right? And what was the diagnosis, what all symptoms were there, what medication actually worked. You can correlate that medicine with a status, whether he is released or he is discharged or dead. Right? If dead and this medicine is given, that means that medicine didn't work. If most of the person were discharged using certain medicine, that means that medicine worked. I mean, 50 years down the line or 100 years back. So those data has potential to save hundreds and thousands of lives, millions of lives, in fact. So as you can see in this healthcare data use case, one might not be interested in knowing that whether 45-year Mr. Sanjay from New Delhi, who was of that specific religion, had COVID or any other symptom, and what was his CRT value, it doesn't matter, right? It might not solve any industrial problem or healthcare problem, and it might not address any business issue at that time. Rather, it might trigger some sensitive political issues or might fulfill, I mean, maybe bias or interest of someone somewhere, you never know. But by any chance, if COVID or this COVID kind of any such virus resurface again after 50 years, The whole healthcare fraternity might be interested in knowing the figures which I actually was talking about. What was the percentage of COVID positive patients for human between 40 to 50 year of age, and what was their average CRT value? What was the overall mortality rate? What was the recovery rate for different age group for the people, as I told? Which medicine and drugs shown best result? What was the infection spread ratio between male and female or kids? What was the recovery rate in people like comorbidities or so on and so forth? So such information required and requirement and fulfillment will address a lot of business problems at that time. It may help the healthcare professionals solve tons of healthcare issues. It may save many human lives. So it is very much clear and evident that we may not have any reason to actually store data with lowest grain level. Why should we store such data to be used in future if there is no significance or not any use in the future? That is where, and hence this data future proofing. So as I told clearly, future proofing of data can help you eliminate unnecessary data burden, reduce storage, reduce data vulnerability, and minimize enterprise data complexity as well. So it captures whenever you think of it, your capture cycle can be either daily, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Mode of capture should be any supported storage mode, depending upon your destination system of storage. In this case, your data lakehouse. Supported mode will be your actually mode of storage. So unlike your conventional conventional organization of data into a destination system like data lake or data lakehouse, like any special data management organization, for example, MDM or CDM. So we propose here to have a separate FDM that is called future-proof data management. So you create a separate FDM layer into your destination data management. In this case, into your data lakehouse. If required, a separate data organization can also be proposed for FDM. So, but please remember that FDM has nothing to do with MDM, by the way, and CDM, and nothing to do with that MDM and CDM design and architecture. Conceptually, as MDM and CDM helps managing enterprise data in efficient way, right? And it helps the business. And similarly, you can expect from that FDM that will help managing future-proof data to be treated specifically and especially for your future business benefits. So that is going to make your future IT org more smarter, efficient, and strategic. So creation of FDM system is not very complex. It is actually a repository of past business facts and figures. So keep the design simple. This is my session. We are due to time constraint, I can't talk about its architecture and all. But yes, we'll come back again. You will listen from me soon. Keep the design simple and follow the process of data future proofing. As I explained so far, so adhere to all 5 phases of data future proofing. And save that FDM. So the 5th stage is all about the storage. So once it comes to a storage of FDM, let me check. I have 10 minutes. Okay. Once it comes to a storage of FDM, I need some water. So once it comes to a storage of FDM, that is future-proof data management, a open format or generic platform based system, maybe vendor independent infrastructure, no proprietary format, the storage is recommended. Why so? See, data future proofing is for long term, isn't it? That might be passed from generation to generation. I'm forcing up to that level. Hence, any proprietary engagement or lock-in or vendor lock platform or format will not meet the overall purpose of data future proofing. Right? Once you have a certain accessibility and availability, in fact, storage upgradation is the last but not the least important strategy under this storage phases. So make sure the storage upgradation is done for the FDM, where you have kept all your future-proof data so that it can actually be accessed seamlessly using the latest storage platform year over year and decade over decade. Remember, data future-proofing is for eternity actually, or till your business or the subject, whether it is healthcare, biomedical sciences or whatever exists, and it is going to exist till the whole human, you can say. So let us look into the next quiz. So this quiz says, while housekeeping a data lakehouse, awareness of applicable data dash dash and dash dash rule and a robust data dash dash process is essential. Fill in the blanks. So awareness of applicable data. What? Awareness of applicable data? Let me give you a hint. Let me help you. So awareness of applicable data, privacy. And which rule? And a robust data process. So privacy, you have two options, which starts with privacy. Now you opt out. Okay. Which one is that? I gave a hint. Let us see. So 66.7, that is 67% people agree what I think of. So that is D. Okay. Privacy, confidence. So it is the statement goes like this: while housekeeping a data lakehouse awareness, while housekeeping a data lakehouse, awareness of the application data privacy and confidentiality rule and a robust data protection process is essential. So let us look into data lakehouse routine maintenance, and I should be able to continue. Okay, good. So now let us talk about the data lakehouse routine maintenance. How to do the data lakehouse routine maintenance, data lakehouse maintenance cycle. Actually, if you look at it, completes data lakehouse housekeeping and make sure your lakehouse keeps shining and keep helping the enterprise or your enterprise by offering insight from the data. Right? That is the ultimate purpose. So here you go. Here you can see data acquisition, extraction, transformation, movement, replication, federation, referencing, privacy, confidentiality, protection, future proofing ultimately. So most of the data lakehouse platform are self-maintained. And the framework have that you know, right? Whether it is whatever platform you take it. The framework has a robust, generally data governance platform, and their DM methodologies are also excellent, like data management methodology. But still, as a part of data lakehouse housekeeping, we should follow this data lakehouse maintenance step to keep the data lakehouse in order year over year, and for an excellent and hassle-free data access from an enterprise data lakehouse. So the secret of data lakehouse maintenance is in its successful implementation. We should automate most of the process using the provided utility or tool into data lakehouse platform. So you should leverage it meticulously. The moment you think of it, meticulously, a meticulous plan and design of data lakehouse supported with certainly robust data lakehouse housekeeping process will, what so far we discussed, will certainly lead to a great business benefits to the actual beneficiary enterprises. So before I move on, the moment the data lakehouse maintenance cycle completes, data lakehouse housekeeping is done, make sure your data lakehouse is in order and is set up as expected for the benefit of your enterprise, which can offer the insight from the lakehouse, and it should cater to the actual ultimate needs. So let us look into the next riddle. We have two more that will help you actually check how the understanding was so far. So FDM stands for, it is very easy, very quick. I think you might not need too much time. Let us see what is the result. Hang on, 100%. Wow, let me clap. Good. So we have another quiz now, the last one. Let us see. It is all about data lakehouse maintenance cycle is part of data lakehouse housekeeping or not. So there is a statement which I gave. Data lakehouse maintenance cycle is part of data lakehouse housekeeping. That is true, false, yes, no, maybe. Wow, true statement, great, thank you, 100%. Great, and thank you very much for being here and participating this session and giving me the opportunity to share this new paradigm. Thank you very much.
Good morning, I'm Patty Haynes. Great, so I thought I would share something really fun with everyone after we've been through such fun presentations. We've had the pleasure of spending time with Bill Inman and Robert Scott, and that is just amazing. I mean, the privilege that we have spending time with them, listening to them, hearing how they explain, and their storytelling is fantastic. I so enjoyed that. And then that was on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we had our two educators with Dave and Valerie, and they did an awesome job explaining text data and how we can transform text data into data that makes sense, structured data. We can look at the context of that text and determine what that means and what someone was saying or speaking or dictating or in a survey. And then Valerie did a great job on analytics. And then just now we heard from Ranjit, and it's hard to compete and follow up with Ranjit. He did a marvelous job. So my name's Patty Haynes, and as Bill said, I have a lot of work with data. I've been working in data warehousing, data quality, data cleansing, all sorts of data since for about 20 years. And just find data fascinating, that it really improves our lives. The more we have, the more quality data we have, it improves our lives both personally and professionally in our careers. But I wanted to share with you this picture because this Bill lives in Denver and I live in the mountains west of Denver. And this is what we got yesterday and last night. So I thought I would share that with you. And so if anyone wants to come help me plow this out this afternoon, I would be greatly appreciative. It's definitely a chore for me to just get down this hill. So this is me. This is and we'll be going through data governance. So I thought I'd go take a step back as to some of the things Bill shared with us on the first day in that data that sits in a data lakehouse. We have for many, many years had structured data, semi-structured. When we started years ago in the mid-90s, in the early 90s, building data warehouses, that's what we worked with. We worked with structured data. We put it in our data warehouses. We helped our business users understand what they were doing. We gave them self-service. We gave them query tools. We gave them pivot tables and ways that they could drill down and drill across. And that's what we had. That's what we worked with. And it was wonderful. I mean, our users were so appreciative. Our business were so appreciative in being able to have that structured data and have it in a way that made sense to them, calculating values for them, doing a lot of that maintenance work of understanding what the data was so that we could give that to them and they could easily look at it and aggregate and work with data marts and data warehouses. But now you take a look at our world and you're looking at semi-structured and unstructured that Dave spoke about with text data, and how can we make all that text that's sitting out there useful? We've got machine generated, and this data comes from our batch systems, our real-time systems in email, notes, call centers, dictation. We've got doctor notes. It's fantastic. Some of the things that you saw Ranjit spoke about and Valerie spoke about were medical notes, were doctor notes and dictation from doctors, where they have their operational systems, but they also add a lot into their into these note files. And we are able to use that a great deal. And I know some of the questions that there were on that day that Dave spoke on medical data and restaurant data and all the negatives, all the negated type information we see. And we see that in restaurants. We see that in medical data where a doctor will say, the person I see, the person has these kinds of things, but they also do not have these kind of things. So it's very important that we can tell the difference when we're looking at negation. So we're getting all of these kinds of data, and it's being put in our data lake, in our data lakes, in our data lake houses. We've got our structured data that Bill talked about being the least amount of volume. It's the most understood. We've had it for a long time. We do get structure from it. We get schemas and layouts, and we know we have compliance on it. There's just so many things that the structured data has. Then we have our unstructured data that Dave spoke a little bit on, the text and machine generated. So Bill presented this to us with the volumes being very different in our data lake houses, and also the characteristics of the data being different. And then the value is very different between these three types, and how we connect it with these universal connectors. With the universal connectors, the connecting of that data, a lot of that is going to happen through data governance. Data governance is something that many developers will go, oh, doggone, we've got to do these things for the data governance people. What data governance is helpful for is to become part of the culture. For all of us to be, every one of us, developers, business people, information governance people, our executives, our managers, everyone in our organization be part of data governance. And it takes people, process, technology, and of course, data to make this whole thing work. But it's very important for our organizations to make data governance part of our culture. Some things I'll back on this one a little bit is we have many organizations now that have groups, units, organizations, large organizations that are the enterprise data governance people who are setting our policy, along with then inside an organization, inside a specific group that maybe handles claims, policies, point of sale systems, whatever they handle, whatever the business is, they are now being required to have as part of their job description, as part of their performance criteria, they have metrics for data governance. So these are the kind of things of making that part of the entire everyday work, everyday things that you're doing, that you're being asked to do, and you're being given time to do that. Those are the important things. So the purpose of data governance is twofold. And I know you guys just talked with Ranjit. He mentioned, we talked a lot there about the risk, about privacy, about security, confidentiality. So one of the things data governance is intended to do is minimize those risks, including data breaches that we see so many of them in cybersecurity, ransomware attacks. And then we do have all of the regulatory compliance that is very important to us these days. And I'll go into that with GDPR and CCPA, lots of different things that we have to look for. But it's important because it helps us minimize the risk to our company of harming our company if data gets in the wrong hands or data is shared when it shouldn't have been shared. That's one of the intentions, one of the goals and purposes of data governance. Another one is providing that oversight to data for the business strategy and the business goals. We're looking at providing information, metadata about our data, taking that metadata from all the different places we have of metadata and using it and organizing it and consolidating it and having glossaries, having all of those kinds of things that will help our business people with their strategy, with their goals. Those are those two areas that are important to us of being able to use for data governance. So what are some of the components? A lot of components to data governance. Some people may think it's just a catalog. So you're going to see through some of the rest of the slides is it's more than a catalog, but a catalog is a key component to data governance. We want to be able to manage our metadata. We want a catalog of all of our data. We want to know, if it's possible, to know our physical format, especially for those structured data we have. We want to know what it looks like. Does it have constraints on it? Or, so that we can make sure we've got more quality data in that structured data. We want a glossary, descriptions with examples. And I know descriptions are a tough thing sometimes for IT people because we see the name and we're now working very strongly on using standard names and having everyone across our organization using that set of standards. But sometimes we will define employee number as the description would be number of the employee. What we're looking for in those descriptions from the business is true examples, true descriptions of what does that employee number mean? What does that employee mean? So that we understand how important and critical that piece of data is. So we're looking now for those business descriptions and asking the business, those subject matter experts that Dave spoke about, we're asking them to really help us with descriptions and getting clear examples of what those mean. Classifications in our catalog are very important, that each piece of data, each table, each file, each Excel spreadsheet, each Oracle table, each SQL table, each whatever CSV file we're looking at, and then each attribute, each column within those, we understand how that data is classified. Is it PII? Is it controlled or should be controlled by GDPR, CCPA, by HIPAA? All the other constraints. Do we have sensitive data management rules for those pieces of data? We want to be able to have a way to classify our tables and classify that data within those tables. Critical data elements, those are key because we have lots of data in our systems. We have lots of structured data, we have lots of text, we have lots of data that's machine generated. All of this data, some of it's important, some of it's a little bit important, more important, and some of it is extremely critical. It is very important for our data governance people, for the business that are becoming data governance people, to identify the critical data elements so that we can focus our energy, our time on defining the critical data elements, on protecting those critical data elements, on making sure we know where they're at when somebody from GDPR comes and asks us for something that's has been identified as personal. We're able to get to that data. We know where it's located. Source of origin. Where did we populate it from? Where did it originate from, that piece of data? Those are all key things we'd like to keep in that catalog. And of course, access and usage rules. Are there some pieces of data that should not be accessed by everyone, by some people? So you want to make sure you've got those rules. Quality rules. What kind of rules should apply to that data to determine if it's quality? We'll go through some things there in the next slides, but you'll want to have those rules documented as what you consider quality. You may even want to have your domain values in there for each piece of data. What are the values that this piece of data can be? And then very important is ownership. Who owns this table? Who owns this database? Who owns this report? Who owns those information assets that are within your company? And who then is responsible for stewardship of that information, making the decisions about those assets. And then the last key here is build. You first need to build it, and it's going to take some time to get all of a company's information assets into a catalog. But at that point in time, it's not over. The work is not done, and you need to maintain it. It needs to be updated continually, because we're continually adding data, we're continually changing things, we're continually changing transformation rules. Those are all key things. We have tools that will help us load in physical type files. We have dashboards that will help our information governance people add in definitions, identify critical data elements. So there's a lot of things that will help us, but it is very important that we not only do the work of building it, but we understand we need to maintain this. Data lineage is part of data governance. And this is what Robert Scott did a fantastic job on. I just love listening to him talk and explain things. An understanding in our good old days, I know all of us, and I have done lots of source to target maps, but really understanding all of the sources and all of the hops, all of those transformation stops that our data takes from location to location. It may start at an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file, or we bought that data, or we acquired that data from the outside, and it comes into our organization and finally lands within our domain, within our platforms. We want to then track and trace that information as it moves across from data mart, from the location to a staging area, to a data mart, to a data warehouse, to a data lakehouse. We want to be able to track and trace all of those, what we call hops, through all the transformations that take place through those hops. We want to manage that movement. We want to manage the transformation jobs. We're able to then, after we can see this lineage of the data, we're able to do, our IT people are able to do impact analysis of that. They're able to take a look and say, if I made a change in a table way back in one of the early sources, how many reports, how many other tables am I going to impact by doing that? Those are the kind of things this data lineage can enhance and improve the way we maintain and manage our systems. You've got an audit trail of all the critical pieces of data. If you're in banking, if you're in insurance, anything that's highly regulated, you will find that regulators come in quite a bit and need to look at how you're managing those critical pieces of data, those CDEs, critical data elements. How are you managing them? How are they being protected? Where do they go? Where do they start from? And then what are the hops? What are the paths? And what are those transformation rules to get you there? So you'll see that last bullet is, it's necessary for regulatory compliance. And having an automated tool is so helpful I've seen in many organizations, they will pull people together, pull the DBAs, pull the data developers, pull all the different folks together to try to put a data lineage together from system to system to system to system, from source to target, source to target, source to target, and moving right across. And they will, it will take 4 to 6 months. That data is outdated by the time it's handed over to a regulator, to an auditor. It's all of those kinds of things. It will take, I don't know if I just destroyed my diagram. There we go. Those are the kind of things that we want to be able to see. We want to be able to trace our data. We want to be able to do it quickly. We want to be able to do it timely and accurately, not to take the time of and that time is so valuable. Our developers who have a ton of work on their plate to come back and try to pull together lineage and then try to stitch it together manually. We want that to be automated. So what Robert showed us in an automated data lineage system is just fantastic, to be able to have an end user, an information governance person, an IT person sit down and say, I want to see the data lineage of this asset, of this report. Show me this report going all the way back. And we have seen reports with 500, 600, 2,000 columns within that Tableau report that's going back 500 different tables and hops that it's going through. But it's wonderful to see. And then if that's too much to see in one view, you can start minimizing things. You can start looking at the ultimate source and the ultimate target, as Robert showed us. So that is, data lineage is very, very key. Data quality, another key factor is, I know some of the things that Bill talked about, Dave talked about, is trust. Do our business users have trust in that data? So we want to create data quality dimensions. We want to determine in our information governance people, have them take a look at what's important, what kind of quality dimensions are important. Completeness, we want to look at accuracy, timeliness. Is that data coming in a timely manner? Is one piece of data coming in monthly and another piece of data coming quarterly and another piece of data is coming in yearly? It's not very timely, or it's coming in nightly, or it's coming in real time. You want to look at uniqueness. Is some of the data that's supposed to be unique, it's a key. Is it unique? Is it really unique across our systems? Consistency across our systems, being able to look at relationships, not just in the record, not just in that one piece of data in the record, but all of the data going across the tables that it joins to, the tables that it relates to. Is it consistent? We have an employee number, we have product codes. Are they consistent across all of the data that we have, and validity? So we want to look at those quality dimensions to help us determine metrics. It is key for us to determine quality metrics, to set a standard quality process in place, that we set our quality rules in place, we measure them, we continually measure them, whether that's a daily process, a weekly process, a monthly process, but we measure with our data quality rules each of our critical data elements, and we see, are those critical data elements staying at the percentage of quality we expect? We expect them to be at 90%. We expect them to be better. Whatever we set as our rules, those data governance people will set as the rules and the performance metrics. We want to make sure that we measure them. We measure them continually. We track them continually. We send out notifications and alerts to the owner, to the steward, to the responsible person, to say, we just saw that your data quality went down. It was reduced by 10%, by 2%, by whatever percent, and you need to take a look at that and have those processes in place to improve the quality. Make sure that we're going back to the source. We're going back to that ultimate source that we can find in the data lineage, in that automated data lineage report, in that app. We can take a look at the originating, the ultimate source, and look and see what happened to it. Is it coming in from an outside vendor and they're reducing their quality? Is it something we're creating inside? Is it something we picked up from a machine? Is it something we picked up from text? You know, and we need to tighten the rules that we're handling when we're managing text data. So those metrics for quality are very important. And then you will see accountability. We want to push this responsibility back into the business. In IT, the IT people were responsible to help. We're responsible to be able to provide the formulas that they need to set up their quality metrics and to help them create those. But then if those, whatever number those metrics become, it's the responsibility of the business and the folks that are managing the data to improve that quality or work with that quality. From there, after data quality, another component is data profiling. Data profiling works hand in hand with data quality. We want to take a look, we want to profile our data, take a look at our data, take a look at the pieces of data, look at each piece to see, is it populated? Is it not populated? Is it populated with valid keys? Does it valid values? We look at the domain values it should be. We want to take a look and analyze through something we call profiling. You can do it manually, you can do it with tools. There's a lot of wonderful tools out on the market that do some of these things automatically for us. And so that's key for us to be able to, as quickly as possible, take a look at this data. There's a skill to data profiling. There's a skill to what you want to look at. One of the things, there's 3 areas here that are important. One is structure. We want to look and see if it's formatted correctly. So you can take a look at things like social security number, IDs, military IDs, country IDs, any kind of identifiers, phone numbers, zip codes, your customer numbers, and make sure that they have been formatted correctly. You can take a look. Those are key indicators if anything's going wrong with your data. The next one would be content, taking a look at what kind of errors do you have in this data? What kind of errors are in the column, in the individual attribute? What kind of errors are you finding where it's not within those domain values across the record? And then now you can start on the next one, relationship discovery. Are there issues between the relationship, between one table and another table, between one file and another file, between structured data and unstructured data, things that you're finding with the textual data? So these are all key things to take a look at when you're profiling. The one thing that you can do with data profiling is set your baseline. Data profiling will help you set that baseline so that you can take a look at what kind of rules do you want to have in place? What kind of quality rules should be in place? And maybe you come along then, you start with data profiling. It helps you set your initial quality levels, your initial quality rules. And then as time goes by, the next quarter, you go back in and data profile again. And maybe you go back in and data profile again in the next quarter. You make that a habit. You have a group of people, quality analysts, that are responsible for that data profiling. Key to understand your data, key to providing trustworthy data to our business, to our analysts, to our executives, to our data scientists. We want to make sure that when they're going in and running queries and they're doing analytics, as Valerie showed us, that we're able to say, yes, that data is accurate. We don't have to go in, a few weeks later saying, oops, sorry, we didn't have clean data for you. We want to really make sure, and I know Dave talked a lot about dirty data in text. We want to do as much as possible to provide that consistent quality data for our users of the data. Another topic for data governance is taxonomies. And Dave spoke a little bit about it when he was talking about how we analyze text data. It is important for our text data to be able to group our data, to categorize or classify our data into groups or types, organize that data and really understand what the data means, how that data reacts to other data. Is there a hierarchy of that data? So it's good for our structured data to understand our organization, understand our industry, but it's also very, very important for that text data, for us to put, as Dave said, the context, understand what that data is about, understand if it's medical, what are you talking about? What specialty is it if it's medical? Because all those abbreviations they use may be different. It may mean something different in one specialty or another one. I will give you some examples. I went into an insurance company in Canada, and we ended up trying to create our business terms and our definitions, and we were trying to group all of our data. And so a starting point was to just get a lot of different business people together. And a starting point for that was to take a look at something called dummy employer number. I thought that will be an easy one, because from being from IT, dummy employer number to me meant that IT people probably used it to test with, or business people probably used it to test with. It was probably something that was in the system, but it was never really published and it was never reported on. And so I thought that was going to be an easy one. Unfortunately, we spent the next 4 hours discussing dummy employer number, because what it ended up meaning to different groups in the business, they had learned that it was in the system and they were using it for offshore fishing, offshore oil rigs, because those were being managed a little bit differently than onshore companies. So that was very, very important for us to have understood that all of a sudden that term of dummy employer number had many, many meanings within one organization, just within their different units. So important for us to understand and organize our data, understand and organize it into categories, into classifications, build those relationships, understand our acronyms. I think Ranjit just gave us a few that can mean so many different things, that it's key for us to understand this. Set up our hierarchies. How do things group together, especially in retail? You'll see, right, that you've got clothes, that a shirt, a blouse that rolls up to a clothing group or women's clothing. You want to have those groups identified by the business people. They're helping us. They're the ones that are going to explain to us how our industry works and how our organization works, because our organization may be a little different. I worked with 3 insurance companies, and we were migrating their data across and into another system and into a data warehouse, and we were consolidating their data. And it was all auto policies. So you would have thought that an auto policy is an auto policy across the board. What we quickly learned was this was not the case. There were so many pieces of data that meant different things to those different organizations. Loss ratio was a key one. Earned premiums, earned revenue. Very many different calculations were used within those 3 different companies. A lot of work you want to go in, a lot of collaborations going to occur when you're trying to understand and consolidate and group and standardize all of this data, looking for company definitions and company calculations and transformations. Data governance accountability. This is key. And this is one of the things I talked about in the culture. It's very important to create a group, and whether it's your enterprise data governance group or a group of folks that will, at least in that corporation, be at the company enterprise level, that can set your policies, your standards, procedures, those kinds of things that are important. And setting a priority, because if your organization doesn't have a lot of data governance yet, it will take some time to get your program implemented. So you'll want to do it in small chunks, in small pieces, to make sure that it goes the way you want it to go. It's very difficult to implement it all at one time. So you want that organization that'll be responsible for setting your standards, setting your policies, setting your procedures, deciding. We heard about from Dave, we heard about from Ranjit, doing redacting, encryption, using some masking, some of the functions that are available to us. What needs to be redacted? What needs to be masked? What needs to be encrypted? We as IT people, we don't want to be the ones making and setting those rules. We want to get the guidance from those data governance people, from the people that are focused with the business, that are balancing the business with the IT needs, helping us through that. We want that enterprise group to be the oversight for our data governance, for our organization, for the company. They will look at things like monitoring. What should be monitored? What are the key factors? Tables that have PII data in it, structures, data structures that have sensitive data in it, that will be required for GDPR. Do you want to be able to monitor that and send out notifications to the owners of that data, send out alerts? All of those kinds of things are things that data governance team will start looking at. Tool set, what kind of tools? There are so many wonderful tools on the market today that we can use that all work together. You can buy the package together, the suite together. You can buy individual packages that work together. There are so many options, but it'll be very important for that enterprise group to start taking a look at the direction that they're headed for the organization, for your organization. Another thing that gets kind of left behind is workflows. Data governance can also utilize workflows. You can start setting within a manager, within a data owner, a workflow that individual will receive an email, and then that individual will need to work through that workflow to make sure every week or every month or every quarter they have taken a look at at the critical data elements they have, or the tables that have critical data elements in them, or the databases, whatever becomes the important things to monitor and look at in your organization. And then definitely the enterprise data governance people will be the collaborators. They will be the ones who need to be working together with all your different units, your different organization units, to make sure that those standards go across the board, that they're being applied across the board, that you're implementing workflows across the board, whatever those kind of things are that are determined to be your have a starting point, and then each quarter, each year, add to that and keep adding and building up a stronger and stronger data governance organization. And then along with that enterprise group, you'll want to have within each of your organizations, with each of your departments, each of your units, you'll want to have individuals who are focused on data governance, information governance. You'll want someone at an executive level, an information executive, where they're responsible, and they know that they're responsible to their VP level, they're responsible to the board, to the president. They are responsible for certain pieces of data, for certain systems, for certain machine data that's about machines or textual data, whatever it is, that they need to be responsible for. And then you may have a technical information executive who is the VP that's responsible to manage the systems. And those two individuals would work hand in hand. And then you would have stewards who are doing more of the work of putting that catalog data in, having more hands-on knowledge and hands-on responsibilities for that metadata that's going to be part of data lineage, that's going to be part of data quality. You might have some data quality analysts that are going to be working with the stewards that'll sit down and work with the tools that you can look at for quality. You want to have those data governance organizations have people within each unit, within each department, making sure that it's part of the culture. It's not just something after the fact. Okay, we've developed an application. Now what do we have to do for data governance? It should be part of your system life cycle, your development life cycle, is getting those data governance people getting the governance rules applied early on when you're developing, and make it part of all of your culture, make it part of development, make it part of your day-to-day business. Then we get to things like technical data governance, all sorts of areas here. A lot of times we look at simple things like permissions. What kind, what do you have in place? Do you have single sign-on? Do you have dual authentication? What are the types of things you have to protect? Some of the things that Ranjit talked about is what's out there now that you've got data all over the place. You have it in your operational systems. You've got it in your data warehouses and data marts and data lakes, in data lakehouses. You've got it spread across. People have downloaded it into Excel spreadsheets. How are you protecting that data? How do you protect your organization? So this is very key when we were talking originally about data governance, and some of the purposes of data governance is to reduce and minimize risk of the organization. You want to make sure that however that data is accessed, you've got controls at whatever levels you need it at. You may need permissions at columns, at individual pieces of data, at those individual attributes. You may need data protection at a table level, at a database level, at a system level. Those are all key things for the data governance people to take a look at, to understand, and to work with the owners of the data as to ensuring that the technical parts, the technical pieces are applied correctly. And if you need additional tools, additional systems to be able to do that, that data governance team is taking a look at it. And then audit logs, very important in data governance to have logs as what's happened, who's touched pieces of data. Are they allowed to touch it? Are they allowed to update it? Has it been updated? And having alerts and notifications of that. Those are all key things that you'll want to look at within the technical environment. And then having metadata management tools. As we talked about earlier, lots of tools out on the market, lots of tools for you to look at and to interface together and to integrate together and to integrate with your existing tools. As Robert talked about with data lineage, there's automated tools that will, he works with tools that will go in and pull out data from your Informatica, from your data stage, from your SQL, from your DBT jobs, your DBT models, your MFP jobs, all of those different processes where your organization is moving data from one source to a target, from that target to another target. They're continually moving data across. The different tools that are being used, you want to look at a data lineage tool that can automatically interface with whatever tools you're using, whatever ETL type environment or any kind of movement, migration processes and software that you're using. You want to look for tools that will integrate with what you already have. So you'll want to have that data lineage tool. You want to look at a data glossary type tool, a catalog tool, those kinds of things that will allow for collaboration, that will allow for, I'm going to put in a definition, I'm going to put in a name, I'm going to put in a definition, I'm going to say it's a critical data element as in my organization, and now we'll collaborate with the other information governance people, the other business people who know a lot about that data, and we'll collaborate and we'll all have input. And then at the end of the day, we will have a much better glossary, a much better definition, much better examples of what this data means. Looking for metadata management, taxonomy management. That's another one that would be awesome to have, is where do you keep your taxonomy? Where do you keep that categorization and organization and grouping of data within your organization? How do you share it with people? So how do you share it with your business so that everyone knows it? Those are some of the key things too, is that to make this valuable, you have to have ways to share it. Share it with information governance people, business people, executives, those analysts, that are going to go in there. They are going in there and pulling data and running queries and running different metrics. And those data scientists that are searching all over. I know one of the examples that was given, that was a large percentage of a data scientist's day is spent digging, looking for the data. The better you can have your data identified, the better you can have a data glossary with definitions, the more data lineages, the graphs that you have on your data. Those kind of tools will help the data scientists be able to quickly and more easily get to the data they want. I had an example of one of my first data warehouses I built for an insurance company. A gentleman was there. I was doing the training and I was explaining to them all of the data that was available to him, that we were making available to him in the data warehouse. And everything had been defined, everything had a definition and an example. And so he brought me this very, very large spreadsheet of probably 1,000 pieces of data. And he said, when I worked at this other insurance company, we were able to pull any of this data, all these thousands of pieces. And he said, that was awesome. All this data was available to me. But he said, unfortunately, none of it was defined. So I didn't know what a green car was for an automobile policy. I didn't know what it meant. And he said, so what we would do is we would pull a piece of data, we would look at it and determine it wasn't what we needed and try another piece of data. So a lot of work, a lot of digging that our data scientists, our analysts are doing to try to find the right piece of data. The better job our data governance people can do, our business people, our subject matter experts can do with our tools, with data glossaries, with catalogs, with data lineage, the easier job our data scientists, our analysts will have when they're trying to look at the data, when they're trying to analyze, when they're trying to come up with some fantastic savings for our company or a new product that's out there that they can find as they look at data, as they're managing and working through the data. So here's this is a bit of a summary here on the services and features of data quality. We talked about profiling, just key important to have individuals that have experience, have training. There's another important part that I left out. It's very important. Get these data governance people trained, not only the data governance people, but people all throughout your organization, so they understand what data governance is about and they understand the purpose of data governance, so that it's always important for all of us as individuals to know when we're being asked to do something, we're being asked to attend training, or we're being asked to do another job. How does that help our organization? So it's important that we define our data governance to everyone in the organization as to, this is how it's benefiting everyone. This is how it's going to improve our business decisions. This is how it's going to reduce the risk of pulling the wrong data and giving our executive, giving our president a report, some information, some fantastic idea, but we built it on poor data, we built it on bad data because we were pulling the wrong piece of data. So all of these are important. That profiling is important, data validation, data cleansing, always key to start looking at, again, as I talk data quality, going back to the business, going back to the source, and the group, the business group, the technical group that manages and owns that source, and having them look at cleansing that data, having them fix the data where it originates is key. The more we can do that, and we can't always do that, and that's just realistic and realism in our real lives and our real systems. But as much as we can start pushing back the responsibility for quality data back at the source, the more improved data we are going to have and the more improved decisions we'll have. We talked about data stewardship, data quality analytics, and then data quality monitoring services. These are all the different types of services that you'll find that are part of data governance when we start talking about data governance and data quality. And now I wanted to share with you that last night my driveway looked horrible, and it still looks horrible. But today, this is how beautiful everything looks when the sun came out and we had all this gorgeous snow hit. And it's something that in Colorado, we love our snow, and we're very happy that we have a lot of snow. But definitely it makes traveling and getting in and out of driveways very difficult. Okay, that is the end of my discussion. Thank you everyone for attending. It has been fantastic to just hear all the different presenters. I personally have really enjoyed just listening to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patty. And tomorrow we'll have the last day of our symposium on Data Lakehouse. Tomorrow we'll be hearing from Sean Owens and Jason Pohl about the infrastructure of the Data Lakehouse. So we will see you again tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock Denver time. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.